This is probably the worst response I've ever seen. This is the worst response I've ever seen. Like, Dijonai's tweet, I didn't even see this. This obviously was an hour ago. This is the worst response I've ever seen. So she fouled somebody, and then immediately after fouling somebody, tweeted white privilege. And Emmanuel Acho, and by the way, Emmanuel Acho is a dumbass in this. He equated Caitlin Clark missing the block and getting Jordan Canada in the head to what Dijonai Carrington did. A wind-up, double hand, miss everything, and then take clothesliner in the air. Like, he said Caitlin Clark did that. Emmanuel Acho is a dumbass. Emmanuel Acho has never watched a WNBA game that Caitlin Clark didn't play, and gets all his points from trendy hoop stars page on Twitter. Like, the Caitlin Clark versus Jordan Canada one is the most textbook flagrant one ever, because you saw it, like, she made some contact with her arm on the layup and it followed through on her head. It is the most absolutely, like, textbook flagrant one. I feel like the referees fucked it in 2024, because the referees did that a lot in 2024. But 2 years ago, Caitlin Clark picked up what should have been a flagrant one, and it was called as a common foul. That was not even close to what Dijonai Carrington did. Dijonai Carrington did an equivalent of Dylan Brooks on, like, intentionally took someone out in the air. Caitlin came from her side, Dijonai Carrington came from behind. Like, she blindsided someone there. There's so big a difference, but Emmanuel Acho is a dumbass. Either way, Dijonai responds, I've never once claimed the assessments of a foul was white privilege. Yes, that was your assumption. What else could it be? What else could it have been? What happened in Indiana? Try exercising critical thinking. That's like me saying, I don't know. It's like me saying, it's like saying, Stephanie White coming out after the game, after screaming, that's bullshit, at the referee, and saying to the ref, it's like, I never once claimed that I said that foul was bullshit. I said that's bullshit. That could mean anything. Use your critical thinking skills. It is the logical equivalent of that. It's a logical equivalent of that. Try exercising your critical thinking skills. You know I studied psych. Furthermore, and the last thing ignorant or ass time when it comes to speaking on white privilege, do your research on that one. Like, what do you tweeted white privilege after you got kicked out of a game? Like, what are you trying to make this some big thing? You studied psych. Cool. Like, what is that supposed to mean? Like, I have a degree in mathematics. It's been 5 years since I've finished my degree? I forgot all that shit. I forgot like 80% of what I learned in my undergrad in terms of the actual content. The reason I actually went to school, one of the top universities, might add, to educate myself in this exact subject. I would never use the term as a rhetorical weapon, knowing the historical and social weight it holds, without having the proper evidence substantiate it. You literally said white privilege after you kicked out of a game. What else is it supposed to mean? What is the reason? Well, if there's another reason why you said it and then tagged the Indiana Fever, say it. If there's another reason other than the foul, say it. Because there's footage of you tripping over kneeing Caitlin Clark, and then Caitlin doesn't even flop, you just kneed her, and then a foul got called and you started doing that. Like, what are we talking about? Like, you have gained more in your career for fucking terrorizing Caitlin Clark than you have from playing basketball, which is the scariest part in terms of off-the-court things. She has gained more from terrorizing Caitlin Clark than playing basketball. And by the way, I think Dijonai Carrington's a pretty okay player. I think she's a decent player. I think she is a equivalent level player to a Sophie Cunningham. But like, so apparently now, we have to really watch into this. So, are you accusing Indiana? You tagged the Fever. So, apparently, the assumption is it was about the foul, so it's not about the foul. Then this gets way more serious. Because by tagging the Fever, we can now assume that the assumption is the Indiana Fever are showing favoritism towards their white players. That's a much more serious accusation. That is a much more serious accusation. That is like, if it wasn't about the foul and it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction to a foul, that is a much more serious accusation, Dijonai. That's a much more serious one. You better have some proof by saying that. You better have some proof. And I do feel like Dijonai's not going to be suspended. She has to be suspended. Like, when you have got Grant Young, who might be one of the more, like, who is the most progressive of the people that will cover, like, publicly progressive of the people that cover the Fever. When he's calling for a suspension, you know something's wrong.
Dijonai Carrington should be suspended by the WNBA, and not because of her foul on Sophie Cunningham. I actually don't have a problem with the foul itself. It was definitely a hard hit on Cunningham's head, and I understand the ejection, but I don't think it was egregious or an unnecessarily dirty play.
Unnecessarily dirty, unnecessary contact. Like, it was pretty egregious. Like, as in, if she doesn't tweet that, no one's talking about this today. Like, let's be clear. It was a hard foul. It's a flagrant 2. It happens 35 times a season in the NBA, and it doesn't have all this news. It is the white privilege tweet.
My problem is with what Carrington did afterwards, writing white privilege and tagging the Fever in a social media post, clearly implying that race had something to do with what happened. It's a very serious and consequential thing for a WNBA player to imply. It's fine for WNBA players to complain about officiating. And
then the craziest thing about this is that after he posted this, Dijonai has now said that the white privilege tweet had nothing to do with her getting ejected. And that is an even bigger accusation. This is now a huge accusation, because you have either accused the league of showing favoritism towards players based on race. Like, you have either accused the league of that, or you've accused the Fever of that. Genuinely, that is, you got to have proof, because that is a much bigger accusation. And you got Robin Lundberg's statement leads to 2 follow-up questions. What did you mean, and what evidence do you have? And if Dijonai Carrington has evidence that the Indiana Fever or the WNBA are racist, that is more than this league promotes Caitlin Clark more than other players, no fucking shit they do that. Or the league didn't punish Sophie Cunningham for saying something in an interview in February. If that's the logic, then that's a suspension worthy. Because again, crying wolf on one of the most serious accusations you can throw at somebody should be a suspension. And again, because all that means is that if that's the case, nothing. If you actually have something to say, or actually have a complaint to make, or something actually does happen surrounding Dijonai that she's got, like, people won't believe it. Like, it's the Dijonai who cried wolf, and it is. She just said a bunch of words. She basically just said, all she said is that you just assumed I was talking about the foul, and I went to college. Like, what? Like, it's just a bunch of words. Like, she could have said, I never, like, you just assumed that. Again, it is the logical equivalent of a player shouting that's bullshit towards a ref, and then complaining that the ref assumed that they were talking about a foul. It is the logical equivalent of that happening. Like, I don't know. Like, Dijonai Carrington's not a stupid person. She's not dumb. She's not dumb. She knows that she can put whatever word salad she wants, and her fans are going to agree with her, and her haters are going to disagree with her. That's what happens when you're polarizing. That's what happens when you're polarizing. And then you've got people on one extreme, like that dumbass Whitlock, saying that she should be banned from the WNBA for the foul. For a flagrant 2 foul. And I'm like, something happens 30 times a year in the NBA. And the WNBPA should be investigating this take very seriously. And because, again, this was a very much claim made, like, against one of their players, potentially, in Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark, and all white players on the Indiana Fever. If we're being real here, this is a PA matter. This is a PA matter now because of the accusation by Dijonai Carrington. If this ends up being incorrect, which, let's be very clear, probably will, then Dijonai Carrington, like, the PA needs to defend their players, because there are a lot of players on the Indiana Fever that this now, there's only one of two things this can mean. Either the WNBA, or sorry, she tagged the Fever, not the WNBA. This is the only thing I can think of that what she meant from this, if it wasn't complaining about the foul, is that the Indiana Fever are essentially giving players preferential treatment because of their race. And because she tagged Indiana and didn't walk back on it, that is the only, like, for me, that's the only way. I could be wrong. And if someone else gives me an actual thing that she could have potentially made, we can discuss that then. But that is an extremely serious accusation. And if the Indiana Fever are doing that, and again, there's more evidence than, look, Caitlin Clark's on the front of the poster. Well, yeah, no shit. She's the reason why 20,000 people show up. She's the reason why 16,000 people show up at every game. Like, I'm sorry, they played, and if you want to say, oh, but they showed up for Kelsey Mitchell, they played in a barn when Kelsey Mitchell was playing for years. But yeah, it's Dijonai. As Nalissa Smith said, here goes Dijonai.